Marc Molinaro joins me now. Molinaro is the Dutchess County executive, and more importantly for this discussion, he's the Republican nominee for governor of New York. So, Marc, welcome to WIOX.
I'm happy to be on. Thanks for having me.
So you're running for governor, and is it safe to say that very few people outside of Dutchess County and maybe the Hudson Valley know who you are?
Oh, I don't know that that's safe to say, but I recognize that we have a lot of work to do to not only get my name but our message out across the state. But I'm grateful to have the support not only of the Republican and Conservative parties, but also the Reform Party across the state. So, there are a lot of folks over the next few weeks and months who are going to be working pretty hard to make sure that New Yorkers know that they have a reasonable alternative to a government and a governor who, sadly, I think is not addressing the needs of ordinary New Yorkers.
Before we get to what you want to do if you're elected, I have one more question along these lines, and that is, I'm reading a biography of another Dutchess County resident who ran for governor, Thomas Dewey, and he won because he had a statewide and a national reputation as a crime buster. And from 1940 until his election in 1942, he traveled the state meeting with Republican leaders. And Dewey, of course, was a media star. He had the fire in his belly. He made it clear for years he wanted to be governor. But you, on the other hand, played coy, and then late in the game, you got the Republican nomination. So my question is that a winning strategy?
Well, it wasn't a strategy at all. It was truth. I spent about a year and a half traveling the state, got to know many folks, not only in my party, but in certainly outside of the party. And I had thought that at the end of the year, it just wasn't the right time for me to run. The political environment and other issues, just didn't seem like the right time. And when I decided not to, my phone started ringing. And frankly, it was from those in and out of my party from across the state who said, this is your opportunity, it's your chance. You have something to offer us. And, when I decided to jump in, listen, support came my way. I'm under no illusion. I'm running as an underdog, and like most underdogs, our job is just to get out there and make sure New Yorkers know that they have an alternative, that we don't have to be governed in a way that leads to high taxes and a corrupted government, frankly. And I'm a fan of Dewey. I'm a fan of FDR, both Dutchess County residents. But I've walked this path for much of my adult life, and I'm going to keep fighting for the people that I serve, and to work hard to earn the support of New Yorkers.
Let's talk about some of the things that you say you want to do. You say you want to cut the state income tax. What will that mean for a typical taxpayer, and how much will that cost the state government when it comes to income?
Well, first, my focus is on property tax relief, and that we're going to roll out a pretty extensive property tax relief plan over the course of the next couple of months. But it's property taxes that make New York so expensive and make it less competitive. It's property taxes that are driving families out of New York. And by the way, in this state, New York forces more state spending onto local property taxpayers than any state in America. So what that means for me is we need to drive down property taxes to make it easier for families, farmers, and businesses to survive. And they deserve relief. They do. Now, I do want to take issue with the premise of your question. The assumption always is in Albany and in government, well, if you cut taxes, you've got to cut services. Now, I'm sorry. In this case, that's not an accurate argument, because New York spends more and gets less than generally every state in America. And we did this in Dutchess County. I came into office, inherited a significant budget gap. We were able to streamline delivery of services, improve and enhance services for those with disabilities, those living with mental illness, those addressing addiction. And at the same time, over the last 7 years, we've been able to cut property taxes as well. So there is a path to providing and ensuring a competent government that delivers services effectively and efficiently. And with that, you can drive down cost and cut taxes.
Let's talk about tax cuts, though. You said you want to cut property taxes. The last time I looked, the state of New York does not impose a property tax. It's the local municipalities and the counties and the school districts. There are unfunded mandates that drive up property taxes, and the county share of Medicaid drives up property taxes. So why are you talking about cutting taxes that you won't have any direct control of? What about you? My understanding is you said you were going to cut the income tax.
We need to drive down property taxes, and I'll share this with you, and I don't mean to take issue, but you're wrong. The property tax burden in the state of New York is the direct result of New York State forcing its spending down onto property taxpayers. No other state in America does this. So what happens, of course, is, and by the way, Joe Biden had a great quote, and my granddad used to say it, don't tell me your priorities, show me your budget. If Albany and New York believe that certain programs and policies are important, don't shift the cost to property taxpayers who are already overburdened. So what they do is consistently, and this governor's done it, force more spending onto property taxpayers and then blame the local governments for having high property taxes. It is a sham, it is a lie, and it has to come to an end. If we're going to make New York affordable, take responsibility for the cost, drive down and make government services more efficient, and with that, property taxes can come down. But I'm telling you right now, and I know this, 70% of Dutchess County's property tax levy, and in some counties and communities across the state, it's higher, even school districts, is the direct result, with no local control, of state spending. That is how you confront property taxes, and it is, in fact, the state's responsibility to help drive them down.
So you're talking about unfunded mandates. So if you're a member of the New York State Legislature, why would you give that up? Because this way you could go back to your constituents and say, look at this great thing I did. Oh, but the state isn't paying for it. The local property tax will. It's a power that the legislators have, and I doubt if they'll give it up.
Well, they don't have to give it up. I'm going to propose a budget that does it. I mean, I'm not running for state legislature, and I'm not taking issue, but I get the premise. That's because it's a lie, and it's about time a governor stands up and says so. And by the way, this governor said so. In fact, many governors before him have said so. But this governor came into office saying that he was going to provide property tax relief, and he was going to confront, the shifting of state costs. It's not just mandates. It's the fact that the state of New York, in fact, just takes the money out of local communities to pay for its programs. So it is a lie that needs to be confronted because it is the reason that it is so expensive to call New York State home, and that is a priority for me. No matter who says what, as governor, I will propose a budget that begins the process of providing significant property tax relief.
The downstate economy is booming. Much of the upstate economy is stagnant, and one of the reasons is it lacks private investment in new, expanding commercial enterprises. Any ideas on how to boost the private economy upstate?
Yeah, well, again, I think you've got to make it more affordable, and one of the issues that we certainly have is in New York, whether it's high energy costs, high workers' compensation costs, high property taxes, or overregulation, we've ended up strangling job creation and economic growth upstate. We also don't maximize and take advantage of our great resources, one of which are college students. We are educating far too many kids that ultimately leave for other parts of the country because instead of investing in our communities and supporting infrastructure that will grow village, city, and hamlet centers where you can have small, medium-sized businesses support, or even the whole startup economy. Instead of doing that, what we've seen consistently is this governor takes political contributions from businesses and in exchange hands out billions of dollars in taxpayer support to select private industry. That is not economic development. It's not going to result in job growth, and we know it because we've seen the consistent failure and lack of success. So for me, it's about investing effectively in infrastructure so we can build those city, village, and hamlet centers to support quality existing small and medium-sized businesses. 70% of jobs are created by existing businesses in a community. At the same time, ensuring that we're educating kids both in our public schools and then secondary education for the jobs we have today and the jobs we need tomorrow. And that's about aligning education outcomes with economic needs all across the state. And really investing in the human capital, not taking tax money from overtaxed taxpayers and giving it to a select few businesses. And
that's the grant system that you're talking about, and that's a source of alleged corruption in the state. So will you end state grants controlled by elected officials?
Two or three different things. It's not. I mean, I understand that this governor has made that put that system on steroids. It used to be sort of broad competitive grants resulted in equal access, but that's not how it works anymore. This governor has taken full control of those dollars, billions of them. And to answer your question, I would absolutely end direct cash payments to businesses. I'm all for economic development where there's equal access and broad support based on outcomes with the ability to claw back benefits. But as an example, this governor gave $1 million to Cadillac to refurbish their offices in Soho, New York, when their very vice president said there was no question they were leaving the state. They were never leaving the state of New York. I like Soho, I like Cadillacs, and I would love $1 million. But it's not appropriate to take money from taxpayers and give a direct check like somehow New Yorkers are an ATM for business benefit. It's not appropriate to do that, and that has to come to an end. It does.
Marc Molinaro. Marc Molinaro is the Republican candidate for governor of New York. And Marc, thank you for coming on WIOX. And let me add, you're welcome back anytime.
I'd love to. Thanks very much for having me.